Hello and welcome to the Monopath podcast. I'm speaking with Calum Whelan today, self-described singer of songs and lover of wolves, I'm told. We do briefly mention his lovely Pooch in the podcast. He's got a great dog. Main reason I follow him on Instagram, I suppose, is so I can watch and stalk videos of the dog. Best thing ever. Anyway, I'm truly here to speak to Calum about his singing, and so about voice, some of his history, and the development of that. We do more formally kind of recognise what this podcast is intending to do at the very beginning, which is to kind of get inside people's experience of creativity, or being creative, or being artistic, any of those three things, in whatever way it is achieved. Sometimes that's with singing, sometimes that's by doing something that some people just wouldn't call creative at all. But I'm interested in them all equally. So in this podcast, although I won't go into too much detail here, you can read about what we cover in the show notes below and wherever you found this. But we do cover everything that it takes to be a singer in today's world, and that's the pandemic world and beyond. Before I pass you over to Cal, I mean, these are always things that I mention. Sorry about that if you're sick of hearing them, but go ahead and buy some tea, yeah? So for those who don't know, I also have a tea company on the side of this, Arthur Dove Tea Co. You can find all of that in the show notes, but the handle is Arthur Dove Tea Co, which is spelt how it sounds. Website is the same. You know, all the music and everything from that starts this podcast as well. That's elsewhere. I do have a new single coming out very soon. I've been working on that for the last couple of months. I'm not going to say any more about that just yet. I don't really feel inclined to, so I'm quite enjoying keeping it just for me for the time being. But that should be out soon. Anyway, I'm hoping that... I mean, it's looking probably likely that it'll be out in the beginning of next year, but we'll see. Anyway, with the tea company, the Christmas blends are now out, and you're buying and enjoying the tea blends and interacting on our Instagram, which is the main port of call for everything that we're doing with the tea company. It really does help, and in lieu of any other way to really support this podcast, that will do the job. So I appreciate everybody who has done that. Frankly, I don't know what to say. It's great. I'm very grateful that anybody would buy the blends, listen to the music, listen to the podcasts. It's quite humbling. Feel chuffed. So great. Anyway, that's that. Actually, one last thing. So I don't make a habit of apologising for things that I can't control, but the audio kind of a bit ropey at the beginning of this, but it does pick up as you get into it, so please be forgiving of the first 30 seconds or a minute or so. It does get a little bit better there. There was a bit of a lag on the connection, so there were a couple of times where we trip up over each other, but all in all, great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So with that all aside, let's get straight to it. Cal, welcome to the podcast.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic and all the better for seeing your pink hair, I think.
Likewise.
How could it be any better?
Hello.
Okay, so I had hoped to talk to you officially on this podcast. You'd been a guest on the tea company. It wasn't really the podcast then, it was just me almost field testing the idea of having a podcast by just chatting to people about any old thing on Arthur Dove Tea Co's Instagram, and that was lovely. I picked you because you're easy to talk to, so why not? I also picked, the second reason there was at the time we were in the middle of the pandemic, we're in the middle of a lockdown, which we are again, and so I was interested in talking to people about how they're adapting to that. This is similar, but I'm, as I mentioned before we started recording the podcast, a bit more interested now in the not the creative process as such, but I use the term the first person experience of creation and of creativity. You're a singer, though, and that makes you quite an interesting case. I mentioned I've interviewed a few singers or singing teachers and things like that on the podcast earlier on. But I guess the first thing a good place to start might be with your history as maybe as a singer before a performer, unless those two things, maybe they started at the same time.
No, I'd probably say the performance side came a lot later. I was a singer kind of first off, but I don't feel like I was in any way shaped or sculpted to be confident as a performer yet. I started as a chorister. I was a choir boy. I was a choir boy at Wakefield Cathedral Choir. And I started there when I was 10, maybe 10 or 11, maybe a little bit younger. And again, I'd always come from quite a musical family. My sisters were always singing. My mum always sang. There was a piano that my sister played, and my other sister played clarinet and violin and things. But I was never massively musical. I always kind of resonated with music, but I never really got into a performance side or any kind. I never had any patience for an instrument, and that still stands today. Darren, people always go, "Why do you play guitar?" It's like I've already got something I'm all right at, and I don't really have to learn that. It's just kind of come. I've learned it over the years. I don't have the patience. I just don't. Pick up a guitar and it starts to annoy me after about 20 minutes.
Well, that's kind of the keystone for learning anything, I think. If you've got to be motivated and have the desire to do it. Otherwise, you're never going to.
No, and I think if you push, there's an element of pushing through it, definitely. But with me, for the most part, it's just, I don't know. I don't feel like I have, and it's not like I give up and go, I'm annoyed for now, I'll come back to it later. I just don't have that drive to want to do it. I'd love to be able to. I'd love to be an amazing pianist or an incredible guitarist, but I just don't have that drive in me. But yeah, I started off as a chorister, but there wasn't really much performance in that. It was, a joint thing, a couple of solo bits here and there. But yeah, to answer your question, the performance came much later. Singer first.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I don't know if most people would keep those things in separate categories, performance and singer. But to me, it just seems like there's quite a big gap between the two. When was it you think that performance started becoming more prevalent to you?
Definitely college. When I was, even before, when we were at college together, I was at Leeds College of Music. And that was kind of my first foray into singing live in front of people as a frontman, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously people had seen me sing, I'd sang in front of people, but I'd never performed. And that was kind of when I began to, I don't know, and even then that was my first kind of stepping stone into just singing on my own and people looking at me. There was never any kind of showmanship or flair or kind of, whereas people who, might know me now, I'd say maybe something that would stick in their minds would be I'd hope my vocal talent, in inverted commas, but people will go, he's a showman, he puts on a show. But that definitely came when we went to college together. I think that was probably one of the more comfortable environments I was in.
How many years was it between the two then? So you being at college and feeling a bit more comfortable with performance and you starting?
Well, I'd say, so it's from being in the choir from like 9, maybe 10 to performing at Leeds College of Music was 10, maybe 12 years later. But then to actually get into some kind of groove, we're talking, maybe 24, 25.
Was that a staggered incline then, or was it just kind of get to college and all of a sudden everything clicked into place?
It was more when we were at Wakefield. I think there was a lot of people around me that I just felt very confident with, and I felt like I was supported by you being one of them and stuff, and it just kind of gave me that confidence to go, do you know what, just kind of get some.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I really think that's a Yorkshire thing as well,
Yeah, just like, that's why I kind of put the onus on that. Yeah, just get a go. what's the worst that's going to happen? I suppose it comes with age. I mean, I've never been the most confident of people, and a lot of people might say wouldn't know that, but yeah, it's taken me a long kind of time, and even now I still get uncomfortable and nervous sometimes. But I just think, why not? It can even if it's bad, it's going to be funny. I think.
Which is a performance in and of itself, I suppose.
Yeah. Right. There's times I'll go, I'm getting on that table, which will look amazing if it goes right. But if I fall, I'll be like, I'm that guy who just absolutely decks it off that table. That's yet to happen, though. We'll see.
Oh, fingers crossed on that one. I think there's got to be risks, though, in performance. I kind of think with anything creative, I talk about risk a lot. And there's always that balance between things being comfortable and things being, well, yeah, for lack of a better word, risky, unsafe. And so you've got that balance there. I guess the virtue of a educational environment for me was always that it was controlled risk. So although you were performing and doing the same things that you might say were a risk in front of a public audience, you were doing it in front of the same people week in, week out. And so it just felt a bit more contained.
Yeah. Yeah, it builds, like you say, week after week, you're playing the same song, kind of with the same people. And in fact, tell a lie, it was when I was in an original band as well, with a few people that you know.
Mm-hmm. Was that Car 38?
It was Car 38, RIP. I just completely skipped that enormous chunk of my life. But then, yeah, that kind of definitely helped me pull out some kind of performance. It was, again, like you say, I was saying, playing with the same people week out, you learn to trust them and trust yourself, and then push the boundaries and go, yeah, actually, I will kind of do that and move around. I still feel like an idiot, though. Like, I don't feel like the most, I don't want to say graceful, because I don't think you need to be graceful. I don't know. I can be quite self-conscious. But that's just me.
So what is it that's going on in your mind when the switch is flipped and all of a sudden you go from maybe being more self-aware, and not actually self-aware is probably a bad term to use there, kind of self-conscious, to being uncaring about that?
Yeah, I think me, well, I mean, I don't want to get too dark or anything, but, I've suffered with anxiety for a great number of years. But sometimes there is nothing more freeing than just chucking caution to the wind and going, what's the worst that could happen? And when you said what's going through my mind, it's almost very little. I like to just, I don't want to be so cliche and say lose it and be free, but just let yourself go and just feel it. I don't know.
I think that is it. I mean, that's it for, maybe that's kind of a unifying thread on the podcast, and it certainly unifies with my own experience of doing anything well. And that's that I do almost lose myself.
Yeah.
Eminem would be proud of
it's an overused term and it's cliche, but it's true. The reason cliches are cliches because there's a universal truth to it, isn't there?
Yeah, that's it. I honestly think, I mean, I've been like you, in a way, like I've never thought I've been particularly gifted with instruments. I can play a lot of them. I can play
nonsense.
No, it's not.
I'm going to stop you there. No, go on.
Okay, well, no, let me get to the point. So, I can play bass guitar and guitar, and I've been learning piano, and I think I'm good enough. I'm good enough to be able to do what I want to do, which is to talk in terms of the instrument, like use the language of the instrument. Like if I wanted to talk to another guitarist, I understand the instrument enough to be able to do that and to play something to show them, and that's good enough for me. But I've never really felt comfortable on any of those things, and so I find it very hard to get into that. Well, some people call it flow state, but I find it really hard to get there with it. And I think it's the same with singing for me. The only time that I ever really get to that point is with actually writing the songs themselves. When I'm writing the music, I find it much easier to get, I turn off and stop thinking about playing and what I'm doing, and I'm more I'm more there, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of associate music or creative thinking or processes with like an end game, like a start of I've got this idea, I want to get it down, I write it, I record it, then I perform it, and everyone watches it and loves it. Whereas the creative process I feel like, can stop at any of those junctions, and so it's not. I don't always feel like music has to be written to be performed. Like that's its final. That's its final goal.
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, I want to change what I said. I'm redacting it.
All right.
So I think when I'm trying to do this not to be indulgent, but to just try and make sense of it for myself, which is really the point of the podcast. But when I'm sitting behind a piano, I do feel like sometimes I'll sit, and if I'm just playing and it's just me, and I'm not really doing it for any reason, I feel like I'm more likely to kind of disappear. Whereas if I'm, say, trying to make a record and I'm trying to record it, or if I'm trying to do a performance that's public, I find that harder to get into.
Yeah.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I find I struggle with recording. Not so much performance now. I mean, it's weird. Sometimes I look back at how nervous and anxious I was around performance to how kind of, and I don't want to use confident, but just how kind of more comfortable I am. But especially recording, I don't particularly like recording. I find it a very kind of orchestrated, clinical thing. I can't seem to lose myself recording.
Yeah. I see, when with singing, not a problem for me. I think it's probably because I feel like I'm better at it than any instruments where I'm a bit kind of clumsy. And so I can hear something in voices that I can't hear in instruments. And so a good example is if I'm trying to double track a vocal, it doesn't take me all that long to do it and to get it all, but really like 90% close to the original. And like the whole point of double tracking, for people who aren't aware of what that is in music, is really what it sounds like. It's taking the lead track of a vocal or an instrument and just replicating it as close to the original as possible. And with vocals, that's quite hard. Like, I don't know how much experience you've had doing that, but it's really difficult to do that, or to be told to change key on the fly. Change key. Go 2 tones up. And I mean, I've been recording my voice, and I understand my voice well enough to be able to do that pretty quickly at this point. And I'm like, that is something I'm good at in recording. Not with instruments though. I really struggle with that. So I guess my question and the point that I'm hoping to get something back from is just in kind of your experiences there, like not necessarily with recording or performance, but just the broad range of experiences you've had to do with singing, and where you most or least feel confident.
I'm least confident when I'm not confident in what I'm doing. I used to be very unconfident in being pushed out of my comfort zone, and I'd actively kind of kick back at that. I mean, Henry and Sean, who I've worked with loads over the past, who were guys that we went to college with, I was talking to them the other day, just how kind of, for want of a better word, negative I was about doing different things and singing higher than I could, or kind of pushing my voice. So whereas now I'm more receptive to it and more into kind of opening up those boundaries and trying to go past them. But I think I'm definitely the least confident when I'm not comfortable.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go on.
With that in mind, a lot of the stuff that you do at the moment is cover versions, and you perform them live. How do you approach like selecting cover versions or making them suitable to your voice? Like, how much of you do you put yourself into the covers that you're singing, or how much do you leave out?
Truthfully, a lot, to the point that like I don't feel like they're mine, but I'm here to sing that song to the best of its ability. And it's kind of weird. And when I kind of explain what I do for a living, I always kind of feel like I need to apologize. So I go like, I'm just a cover singer. I just sing covers. Whereas I would, if someone could see me, I'd be like, but I properly go into it. Like it's my song for that 3 minutes.
That's nice.
Yeah. And I guess selecting it wise, it would initially come from, it just sounds so basic, doesn't it? Just, I don't know. It's initially finding a song that I like, and I go, I love that song. I absolutely adore that song. That'd be fun to try. But there are so many songs that I love that are just not right for my voice. Or when I give them a go, I go, that can't be done by me. But there's very, very few songs I sing that I don't love or connect with or do well, I think. There's no lip service songs, I don't think.
I mean, it might be nice to actually hear some examples. Like, what kind of songs are you enjoying the most in your set at the moment?
So I've been doing a couple of Paolo Nutini songs, and we couldn't have more different voices. He's got that kind of husky, Scottish, soaked timbre, whereas I'm more kind of soul-y, less gruff.
Yeah. Okay.
But it transpires that I feel like I can do it well. The audience may argue different, but they're there, so shut up. No. And then there's all the kind of crowd pleasers. Like there are songs that do kind of great, like when you're singing Bon Jovi and Oasis, but it's what kind of pays the bills. I'm of no pomp and circumstance of what I'm doing. It's sometimes it can feel like a job and a bit of a chore, but it's better than being in an office or doing something I hate. I've spent too many years doing things I hate and it not ending well through my own kind of contempt for the job. Nothing bad, like I never like busted up an office or anything, but it just hasn't worked out, and I feel like a lot of it was my kind of issues and being not in the wrong place. And it was it took a lot of years and kind of convincing myself to do it full time.
Yeah, there's definitely it's quite brave and courageous to just commit to that. I mean, I don't know if this makes sense to you, but I've always just thought that, you can either jump or be pushed, and I'd rather jump. So that's why I am where I am.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think you've done a lot of work and there's been a lot of bravery involved in what you do. Because, we could both sit behind the office desks and do administration from 9 to 5 and we'd be furloughed. But here we are. Here I am, not getting paid as such. Yeah, but it was definitely my girlfriend that convinced me, because for a great number of years after when I went away with Henry and Sean, who I mentioned before, we went to Europe, came back, and I stopped singing for years. And it got to the point where I was convinced I couldn't sing anymore. I thought that chapter of my life is over. I can't do that anymore. And then occasionally I'd get up and do karaoke in bars when me and my girlfriend were drunk, and I'd come back and just tell me how amazing I was. And to hear that from somebody that you love and who loves you is more powerful than you can conceive, really. And she was forever going, just do it. If I'm here financially for you, I've got your back. And I'd never really had that before. And then I started singing again, and I was like, God, no, maybe I can sing still.
Yeah, that's all it takes sometimes, though, isn't it? It's just somebody in your corner.
And it wasn't like I'd not had support, but I never really had someone go, you need to be doing this. You are inherently happy singing and inherently unhappy doing these jobs. Like, you don't want to be here. And it's all over your face. It's all over your body language. But I'd be too scared to jump out of that. It was very risky, giving up my full-time job that I'd been there for 5 years. And I couldn't have chosen a better time, just before the pandemic.
Yeah. Right. Since law, isn't it?
Well, truthfully, I don't regret it.
No, because you'd still, I imagine, I don't know what you were doing, but you'd be still doing that job you hated.
Yeah.
And in the middle of a pandemic, no less.
Exactly. And I'd be even more dreadfully unhappy.
I mean, I find this is, you do, I think you were going to say, I hope you answered the question. I think I mean, this is my scatterbrain thinking all over, so we'll just kind of dart around all over the place, and the question will be answered by the end of this podcast.
Cool. Good.
That's my intention. I don't really mind it going off the rails. I think it's quite fun to just go where it needs to go. I was going to ask about, I guess I was going to address the fear thing more than anything else. What do you think are the things that hold people back because of fear? What are people scared of that stops, people like yourself from doing the things that they ought to be doing in the first place?
Failure, mockery, being looked down upon, financial worries, making the right call. I think all those things is, people, I think if there was more of a support bubble that I had with my girlfriend, if a lot of more people had that and had that confidence and push to do it, then maybe a lot more people would. But it's scary, and it's also scary to put your self in the way you perform on the line and go, look, this is what I do. I hope you don't piss yourself.
Yeah.
Or I think I'm terrible. I don't know if swearing's allowed, but we might get away with the P word.
Well, it's too late now.
Apologies. Beep me.
Done. Yeah.
Oh, put a beep in. I've never been beeped before.
I could do that. I've never done that before either. It might be quite fun.
just do random beeps over stuff where it's like, what did he say?
Just every time you speak, it's just going to be beeps. It's a podcast just about me.
I have worked truly hard to not swear this podcast.
You've actually been really well behaved.
Haven't I just?
So far. Yeah.
Haven't I?
Yeah.
There's time yet. But yeah, fear, financial strain, financial burdens, worries. Am I good enough? Are people going to like it? I truly often think how much isn't done in this world out of fear, and how much is the next Einstein 2 streets over from me, but not doing what he wants to do because his wife thinks is a loser, or he wants to appease her and please society in the way that people feel they need to.
Yeah, I mean, are you saying something about maybe like the social structure that we seem to find ourselves in? It's like there's a lot of incentives or disincentives, really, to pursue things that we're interested in. It seems like, by all intents, we're supposed to pursue money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I'm 34 now, and I decided to do this at 33, and the whole the reason I hadn't really done this because I couldn't believe I could, or the way that people would perceive me or frown upon me. I mean, like my mother, I love her to bits, but she was even now a big hurdle to get over, to convince and say, look, I'm gonna spend thousands on gear, and I'm gonna get out there and sing. And she's like, well, what about paying the mortgage and blah blah blah? I'm like, yeah, it is a concern, but it literally took me 33 years of adhering to what I thought was society wanted me to do, and just being miserable. And that's why I said earlier on, like, even with everything that's happened with coronavirus, I don't have any regrets, because whilst I'm still desperately unhappy, I'm happier than I was. No, yeah,
I do know what you mean. There's a false promise, isn't there, from society, really? I think it's like the false promise that if you do the things that you're expected to do, everything will be okay. And yet we can see that that's not the case. It's not the case. It's whatsoever. So mental health, poor overall. And suicide numbers seem to keep rising, especially in young men. And mental health seems to be more and more of a problem. I don't know if that's just my perception of it, but it just doesn't seem to be improved by working yourself into an early grave.
No, and I think it's taken a long time for me to realise something I knew all along, that and to quote Frank Turner, and I don't want to be like one of those people who quotes me, but slaving 50 years away on something that you hate, it's like, where's it going to get you? So I can work till I'm 75, 80 on a job that I thoroughly despise, to then hopefully get a meager pension and live the last 2 years of my life just sitting. I don't know. And I think there's more kind of career opportunities open now for people. Like, if you're amazing at games, you can make thousands from it. If you love talking about reviews of toys on YouTube, you can become a millionaire. And I'm not saying there's some vapid people out there, don't get me wrong. But I just don't think this whole society has been constructed by us, and we need to remember that and realize that we told ourselves this is normal. It's not like someone sculpted you and made you and went, "This is what you do." It's just we've just built it all around money and capitalism.
Yeah, well, I guess
I don't like it, Darren.
I'm actually a fan of capitalism on the whole, because societies that are capitalist seem to do a lot better than ones that aren't. So I'm in support of capitalism, but I think it certainly needs to be modified. That almost goes without saying. I don't think it follows from a capitalist society that you must work 5 days a week and you must work 8 hours a day and you must do a job you don't like. Nor does it really follow that you must work. I don't necessarily think capitalism implies any of those things. So
no, that's fair. Yeah, no.
I mean, actually, I don't. I was having this conversation earlier with Dee, and it's probably because it's a conversation we have very often, and we were talking about people's what seems to be a common view of the world, and it's the thing that we're talking about now, where people seem to be scared, blind into valuing something they don't actually value based on the false promise that it will make them be okay, and that thing is money. And I do think it's a red herring, because the more people obsess about money, the more miserable they seem to get, and the more money people seem to get. I mean, there's no increase in one's happiness because they have more money. So I think people have got the conception wrong there. And I actually usually offset money with time. And I think if I'm trying to explain why I think I've done the things that I've done, whether you think I've done them well or whether they're good things or bad things, I've done them because I don't really value money. Not really at all. Like, I want money enough to do the things that I want to do, and then I stop earning it. So if I can work,
yeah, this is the thing that I've kind of come to realize that.
Go on.
No, sorry, there was a bit of lag. I think what this year's kind of made me realize is how much money I don't need. I've been on my ass. Like, my girlfriend's been earning full pay, but she doesn't earn loads. But you definitely do live within your means. And I haven't been on the breadline. I'm not going to sit here and go, we haven't been able to put the heat on and stuff. It's definitely not a woe is me statement, but it just shows how little you need to get by and what's more important. Like you say, time is the currency, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly it for me. I can't remember why I was talking about it earlier. I'm sure I wish I do remember, because I'm sure it was interesting. But I think looking at it as time as the more, as the goal, and making more time for yourself means that you end up using your time more carefully and you don't fritter it away. I guess it's a question of the two primary resources that we have. We have money, which means you can buy things, and you can swap money for, heating and food and things that we need and things that we don't need. Whereas time is a bit of a different kind of resource, because that's just, time equates roughly to your experience of using all of those other things.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense to you. So it's like, time is the one that you don't want to waste, because time is the only one that you can't make more of.
And it doesn't bend to anything. You don't put more effort in and get more time. It is that constant thing that just keeps going.
Yeah. And so for me, that's just a good reason to make the absolute most of every second that I've got. So I don't like wasting time. So I value being really efficient and really effective and really cautious with how I use it. Which is why, sometimes people say to me, like, how are you doing so much? Because I do this podcast and I have Arthur Dutico, and I'm doing my master's in philosophy and other bits and pieces as well. And how do you do so much? It's like, because I care about my time. I just care about it. I don't waste any of it. That doesn't mean that I spend every minute grinding myself into the floor, like using time and being productive. It doesn't mean that, because you can't. Like, that's beyond what a human is capable of doing. It means that I care about how I spend my time. And so I'll work, but then I'll stop working because I don't need to anymore, and I need a break. And both of those things complement one another. You know, you have a good enough break, whether it's 8 hours of rest like sleep, or just a break to play the piano between writing a philosophy essay. But those breaks actually make me better at doing the other things.
Yeah, it's having that balance, and I think echoing that. I mean, I've never really been the best in my time. I've never been the most efficient or the most kind of savvy with it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I feel like I've wasted years of my life on nothing. But it's up to the point now where I've got my girlfriend who I love dearly, and I've now got an insane Labrador who I just want to throw in the bin. I don't really.
He's great as well, by the way.
Don't come at me, RSPCA. Thanks, man. He's a handful. But I wanted a dog, and I wanted to do something that I loved. So when this is all back up and running, I'm good enough to be in a great band, to perform twice a week, to pay my bills. And I'm not looking to get rich. If I was, I wouldn't be doing this. But if I can have my time for myself, my girlfriend, my dog, the things I want to do, and then work, a tenth of the time I do normally in a week, and still meet that quota, then why wouldn't I?
I'm hoping for a pithy remark here, but if you're not looking to be rich, what is it you are looking for?
Oh, do you know what? Respected. It's weird because as much as I'd love to say I don't value people's opinion, I massively do. And even at 34, I still value what people think of me. And Sarah, my girlfriend, always says, like, you care too much that everyone likes you. I think that's a lot of the reason, like, my comedy's got me into trouble, but I'm always trying to make people laugh. You remember me, I messed around at college. I wasn't the most work focused thing, but I don't know. I want to be liked, and it's always been like a personality trait of mine. It's not my proudest, but I'd like to be respected. I'd like someone to go, oh, there's Calum, he's that amazing singer, or you've got to see him, he's incredible. I think I'd like that on a wider scale. I don't want to sell millions of CDs or being on the news, but I don't know, just be like respected.
So where does self-respect come into that?
Oh, Darren.
Sorry.
that is low on my agenda. Not low. I don't know. It should be paramount and it should be the highest thing there, but I struggle. Nobody dislikes me more than myself. if I'm honest, if I'm being perfectly candid. I think self-respect has to be there. It's something I do struggle with, and again, I think that's what can hold you back from being creatively wealthy as well. If you don't trust yourself or believe yourself, then it's hard to get past that. I think that does definitely hold me back and hinder me somewhat. I wish I did have more self-respect.
Yeah, I think it's a trust thing as well, isn't it? I mean, you can use the word respect, but it is kind of trust in your own abilities. I know we've used words like confidence to explain the same kind of thing there, but being confident versus being maybe over or underconfident, kind of trusting your own abilities is the same thing, and those things supersede respect for yourself, I would say. Is that so?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you can't be a singer or a performer or like a lead frontman without having some kind of ego. But ego and divaism is something that I've always hated. I don't like it. Like, I make a real point to not try and come across like that unless I'm kind of on stage. But then again, it's something I wrestle with a lot. Is I'll come off after like a great performance, and I'll be like, I'm like, damn, actually, I'm really good. Like, I had them there. Like, dude, you are fucking ace. But that will melt an hour later, and yeah, truthfully, like it doesn't last. It's like a fleeting high. It's like you were incredible, and then back to kind of, nah, you weren't that good. There's people a lot better. He was doing better at that other show over there. I don't know. That's just me, and I was trying to be, I want to be candid with it. I want to be honest.
I'm sure it's not just you. I'm sure
No,
that's quite
no,
common.
you're right. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way of dealing with that has something to do with your handling of emotions in general. I mean, it's not. Although I think the world or the West is getting better in some ways about talking about emotions. We're certainly more confident about doing it. I don't really think we're any good at it still. We're more willing to, is what I mean. But I wonder if there's a thing there. Maybe I can put this into my own terms and it'll make more sense. So, I mean, listeners of this podcast will be sick of me saying this as well. But I don't really feel very in touch with my emotions. Like they do feel quite distant from me. So I'm quite academic, I suppose. If you were to talk about what I'm like and what I'm skilled at and what I'm good at, probably people think I'm in my head more. I'm more logical, I suppose people might say.
That's literally the word I was going to use to describe you.
Well, there you go. So, yeah, people would say that I'm probably more logical than I am emotional, like cold logic rather than like hot emotions. And that's probably fair because when I have emotions, I just don't get to the point where I feel them. Like I notice them there, but I don't pay all that close attention to them. So when you're describing something like, the moments after a performance where you might have this experience of self-dialogue where you're saying, I was great there, and then that dissipates and eventually you're like, oh, no, I wasn't, that other guy was better. Is that something that you're experiencing as I would, like logically, that's just kind of me speaking to myself, or are you experiencing that more as an emotional thing?
I think that I can apply that to most parts of my life. I'm very opposite to you. I think, in fact, I am quite emotive. I'm very aware of my emotions, and to a detriment, they have more power over me than I have over them. I think. It's definitely an emotional response. But like I say, most things in my life are. I'm not a big crier. But I'm also of the belief that be honest with what you're feeling. But then there are some people that just get by better without paying much time to them. I mean, if you don't feel like it's an issue, like you say, you don't kind of allow them to infringe. I wish I had more control of them to, push them aside and go, do you know what? That's ridiculous. You're getting in your head about nothing.
I suppose it is control, isn't it? That's probably the right word to use there. And
because emotions. I was just going to say, emotions need to be there. They're vital to. But it's having you may not be as emotionless and as dead as you think. Just might be better. You might just be better at harnessing them.
Well, I know I'm not. I'm definitely not dead. Well, so when I'm talking about emotions as well, I'm using it in the scientific sense, which rather than the colloquial sense of it. So the difference there being that the emotions are just purely physiological. So they're just kind of chemical changes in the body, hormonal changes in the body. Feelings are the intermediary between the emotions and the mind, if you like. So if you feel something and if I'm telling you I feel something, that's because I'm able to recognize the emotions and point to them and say, that's happening. I noticed that. Does that make sense so far?
No, completely.
Yeah, so the only other thing is like there's the cognitive element of our psychology where it doesn't feel like it's emotion. It doesn't feel like it's full of emotions. It's when people say that I'm logical, that's what they mean. They mean it seems like I probably don't feel the emotion, or I'm not having the emotion so much. And they're kind of partially right, but I have the emotions, just not the feelings.
I think that's the best thing you've ever said.
I try.
Yeah, I no, I do get that. I do get that. I just wish I am quite logically minded, but very emotionally driven. I don't think I can.
Well, by the way, we all are. So, like David Hume, famous philosopher, famous quote: "We're all slave. Reason is the slave to the passions," and by passions he means the emotions, and we all are. And being a certain way, how well tuned you are to the emotions or cognition, thinking, is different to each person. But it's a series of trade-offs. There's things that are very tough about being me that won't be tough for being you. Like, I really wish it was easy for me to notice what emotions I had. That would be really useful to me sometimes, because sometimes, I mean, I've described it before as being clenched, but like posturally, I'll just all of a sudden notice that I'm just clenched into a fist. Like my body's all hunched and tightened. And it's because I don't even know that I'm anxious or stressed out about something, because I don't have the feelings that I'm supposed to have, that normal people have. I don't have them. So I struggle with that because I'm so far away, and so I feel so. It seems as if I'm so removed from emotions. Like I just don't have these feelings. And so it's good in the sense that it makes it easy to do philosophy and to think clearly about stuff, but really hard to say, understand why I have a bad back all of the time. Why my body's in pain all of the time. And it's because I'm clenched so much, and I just don't have these cues. Things that are supposed to filter through into my awareness don't do it.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that is fascinating, if I'm honest.
I'm not trying to be a drama queen either. I'm just trying to say there are trade-offs, and so there's good and bad with being me, and there'll be good and bad with being Cal, and you've just got to figure out what they are so you can do something about it.
Can you help? I feel like, but then again, I feel like my trade-offs are I have all those emotions, but still reach the same conclusion. So they're too much, and I clench and my back's in agony. Yeah, I don't feel like I have as good a grasp on my emotions as I could. I don't fly into rages, but there's that ulcer or aneurysm that's just going to pop in my brain and finish me off one day. But
I think the thing is, you don't have to understand yourself. There's no blueprint that when you're born that says that you have to do that, and there's not really much instinct there to do it either. You could just blindly go through living your life and not paying attention to a single thing that you've done, and it could go good or bad. But it just seems leaving too much to chance for me.
Yeah, no, I do get that. I completely get that. It's just like, I think it is just the way we're wired. But then we are also a product of our environment. It's definitely a nature, and I think nature and nurture.
Yeah, I guess, like, speaking of the environment, that's why I was so inclined very early on to break away from what everybody else seemed to be doing, which was going and getting proper jobs, proper being in inverted commas there. But people going to get proper jobs and proper careers and, choosing something that they want to do for the rest of their lives. I've not really ever been interested in that. For years, I kind of just abandoned that idea because it just seemed like everybody around me looked miserable.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Okay, so I wanted to bring it back to the beginning, really. And this is more of a question about the practice of singing in general. Like, did you ever have singing lessons, and what did they entail?
Yeah, I've had varying levels and different teachers. I think the first I ever had was when I was about 16, and they were with Ad Phillips. Obviously, you know.
Oh, nice. He's been on podcast.
How's it? I know. Yeah, so that was the first ever like bunch of singing lessons I had. They've all kind of been very similar in the fact that they'd centre around scales, breathing exercises, warm-ups. And then I had them at college. And then, yeah, did we have them at? Did we have individual lessons at Wakefield College? I don't think I ever had singing lessons.
I think I may have done early on.
Yeah, I don't recall that.
But I don't recall them strongly, so maybe not actually. I remember having group ones, but
yeah, I think I remember. Yeah, I remember group kind of like sing-alongs. I think it was just like camp. And if I'm honest, for me, I've never massively found them beneficial, and that's no kind of slight on the teachers. I just think, again, with something so structured, and I never felt comfortable within them. Just being in a room and mimicking things, and I never thought I sounded my best or that they were helping my voice. I largely think of myself as self-taught, just by listening to things or practicing and playing around. And I don't mean that in like I've built myself type thing, but I kind of have.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah, so I have had lessons, but they weren't always right for me. But I reckon I've definitely benefited from them. There's still some warm-up techniques that I use from a lovely lady called Kari.
That was going to be my next question. How much of the technique from the lessons have you retained, and how much of it do you still actively use?
Yeah, definitely still use a lot of the warm-up techniques and breathing and things. There is the Alexander technique, which I kind of briefly dip my toes into, which is more about kind of how you hold yourself and the breathing and the more kind of like the physiological side of the body. But again, it's just, yeah, I've retained some from them, but it depends. There's no consistency with how I warm up from one day to the next. Sometimes I feel like it makes my voice worse for a performance. Sometimes I warm up and it's just so freer. Sometimes I don't warm up at all, and it's the best I've sounded in months. It is odd for me.
Yeah, I tend to stick to the same warm-up. It's like the same 4 or 5 exercises that I can do in 5 or 10 minutes in the car. I don't like to overdo it, so I do the absolute bare minimum just to kind of get it going.
I remember actually reading something with Bruce Dickinson, of all people. Not the biggest Iron Maiden fan, but I remember him. He was being asked. He was like, "How do you warm up? How do you get ready for a show?" And he was like, "I don't." And the guy was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, it's either there or it's not." And I just thought that was insane. But then also, I kind of massively related to that. I feel like there's very little within my power of warming up that will affect my voice. I know it's probably nonsense, but some people have to and swear by it. But I can't seem to find a tried and true tested method of getting my voice the same.
Yeah, do you think there's maybe, I mean, and I don't want it to sound kind of lofty and pretentious or anything like that, but do you think there's, I mean, it's only because of the word I'm intending to use, but do you think there's some kind of like natural gift or talent that you just have, or affinity for being able to use your voice that others might lack?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a question that I've asked a million times before, and a question that I still ask. It's like, do I have this physiological gift / talent / ability, or? But then, I don't want to say all, because I know for a fact that my ears are quite good, and I've definitely learned how to sing. I think if I was to answer it, I reckon you've got the ability, and you know that the structure is there. But then you teach yourself or you learn it. But I think you've got to have that basic structure.
Yeah, I find it really interesting to speak to somebody who would say that. So my fiance, is a dancer, and so she thinks something similar with her in dance, that she's just got a natural inclination. She's disposed towards being a dancer. Something about her attitude and her desires mean that she's more likely to be a dancer from day one. Whereas for me, singing, I mean, it was never like that at all, and I don't really think it was like that with much. Like, I never knew what I wanted to be when I was a kid, ever. And I think the only thing I know, I think I'm just good at learning. Like, I'm good at disassembling things and going and noticing how to do something. So with singing, it was the same sort of thing. I started doing it just because nobody else did. And I improved at it because I paid attention, I suppose, to what I was doing. And I just trained. I would probably identify as somebody who's self-taught when it comes to singing. I never really had. In fact, I probably said that with practically everything I do other than playing guitar, which I did have lessons for. But I'm self-taught, but I'm self-taught in that sense in most ways because I do, again, maybe this is the virtue of not being so connected to emotions, is that I feel like I've got more time to just think clear about what this thing is and what that is and what this is. I spoke about it before on the podcast and you mentioned how some of these things that we're talking about just apply to the rest of your life anyway. And for me, what I've done with singing and learning instruments is no different to what I've done with learning how to talk to people. It's not a natural gift for me at all. I was born hopeless at just having a conversation, just like desperately shy, not able to look at somebody in the eye at all, and generally just quite uncomfortable with myself and everybody around me. And I've had to kind of just learn how to not do that. Like okay, well, what does somebody who is confident or is able to do the things I want to do, what is it that they're doing? And I'll just do those. So I guess, I've gone off on a bit of a tirade there that I hadn't intended to go off on.
No, but I get that. But I feel like with music and singing, I've always had that kind of, it's just gone in, even from a very young age. I'd hear something and be able to replicate it almost instantly, singing wise. Or if even now, if I hear a song now, I've got it. I've got 90% of it without even need to hear it again.
Is it the lyrics, the melody, or just the whole thing?
All of it, if I'm honest.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've never really needed to listen to stuff over and over again. I still do, just kind of get it right and hone it. But like you say, I think there's, but then again with you, like maybe with philosophy or, that might just go in. There's definitely, I have needed to hone it and work on it and craft it. But yeah, I'll hear a song and I know it.
Yeah.
There's actually quite an interesting thing. There's Deja, obviously Deja Vu. There's Deja Entendu, which is where you feel like you've heard it before. And there's so many songs I have of that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's almost annoying. Like, I almost feel like I should have written it and gone, that was mine. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'll hear songs and so, someone like that, this is the new track from so-and-so. I'm like, no, it's been out 15 years. I don't know, it's odd.
Is there one that you can think of where that's...
Yeah, and it really annoys me of what song it is. I don't know why, actually, it feels real. But I can't remember the name of it now. It's the Twinkly Piano one by Evanescence.
Oh, Wake Me Up, that one.
No, the other one, the really...
Oh, I don't know then. That's my awareness of the catalogue.
How hilarious and ironic is it said that I've said that I know the song inside out and I heard it before it was written and now I can't
remember the name. Well, actually, it's funny that you do say that while you're searching on your phone for the name of the song. You asked about how maybe some things like... Mime, okay, I have some vague recollection of that.
Go on anyway.
It's just funny, like... With me, you said maybe something like philosophy it does kind of go in and stick around. It really doesn't. It's like, again, this is kind of how into the nitty gritty I like to get with like your first person experience of kind of creating or singing or whatever it might be, and for whoever I'm talking to, is for me when I hear music or when I read books on philosophy. Actually, music is a good example. If I hear a piece of music, and the reason I asked you about, is it the lyrics that you hear or the melody or the whole thing, is for me, lyrics just don't enter the equation. Like, in fact, nothing that I read, nothing that I hear, it's never words and lyrics. It's never the explicit thing that gets to me. It's almost like it just goes direct into some kind of subconscious, inaccessible place to gestate for some period of time, and then I spit it back out in my own work a year later.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot from people. It's like with Henry, who I've mentioned before. He cares not for lyrics; they don't mean anything to him. And are you the same?
Yeah, I don't hear him.
I just I can't. That doesn't. I can't process that. That doesn't make sense to me. I feel like lyrics are probably the most important thing about a song. But that's just me. But when people say that, I'm like, what's wrong with you?
But that's what's so interesting. Dee's the same. Dee can hear a song once or twice, and the lyrics are just, they're in there. She can parrot the whole thing. For me, I forget the lyrics of my own bloody songs.
I think that's what's, again, quite annoying about not being able to play an instrument, is that sometimes I'll be in a practice session and I'll be trying to tell this guitarist what this does, and I'm like, just play it, just do that, and I can't just take it off him and go. I might just listen to me sing it. Yeah, so that is frustrating, but yeah, I've always found it odd when people go. I think Sean's like that. I think Sean's very, what's the word? Not learny, but
it's definitely not learny.
Learning. Yeah, I feel like you two would listen to a song and just start trying to work it out and figure it. And
I don't know. For me, it's really odd to speak to, and that's why it's what motivated me to start doing this podcast. In part to get a better sense of how I work, but it's also just so interesting to hear how other people work. And I almost don't care how to like play other people's songs. Like when I hear them, I just care about, oddly, how it makes me feel, like what it does to me. And
Same.
Given everything else I've said, you maybe wouldn't have predicted that. But it's like with music, it's just all there to hit me and to knock me around a little bit. And I don't analyze music at all, and I don't even have the inclination to do it. So I know for some music is an odd one because. And this is something that came up very early on in recording the podcasts, is that there is this there's like a plurality with music, and it's because you've got music as it was probably intended as it began, where it was just musical and there were no lyrics. It was just like classical music is now, and perhaps before that it was just percussive. And so it was just there to do something. It wasn't about the words. It was almost like communicating meaning and feelings just through these rhythmic patterns, or when eventually classical music through melodies and harmonies and polyphia and all these sorts of things. But it's like with modern music, you have that plus poetry, and that makes it a different kind of thing. It's maybe the same species, but it's a different kind. And so it means that there's more to listen to, or there's more ways that it can be appreciated by different sets of people. Like I feel like music at a simple level, like at the percussion and like tribal percussion, for example, just hits you at a kind of level, like a very simple, almost animal level. Whereas when you add words into it, it's like making it. I mean, it's the difference between like it being implicit and explicit. Like when it's got words in, there's something there that you're told it means. Whereas when it's just music, there's something there that you're not told what it means. But they're ideally, in good music, good modern music, they mean the same thing.
Yeah, there's more interpretive feelings around. Honestly, I've never thought of it that, for want of a better word, basically. But no, yeah, you're right. That's fascinating. Like
it's like what you hear as well. It's because what I hear is from the bottom up, which means I hear it from animal to person almost. So I hear it from like just the things that move me on this animal instinctual level.
What a great line.
If you hear lyrics, then perhaps you don't, and you start by what's explicit. You hear it at kind of like a more intellectualized level, and then you work it back downwards.
Yeah, I dare say. I mean, it's definitely it goes for me words and melodies first. They're the ones that hit me. Like even like if I'm reading a book, there can be a line. Even that line, then when you like, I go from animal to person, kind of hit me in the feels, Darren. I'm not going to lie. But I'll read a line and just be like, God, that destroyed me, like in a brilliant way. So yeah,
I get that when I'm reading. I get it when I'm reading, and if I'm doing philosophy, I do get that. And when I'm trying to write lyrics, I do get that. But when I'm hearing the music and I'm just kind of a witness to sounds, it just doesn't even touch me. Doesn't touch me at all.
That is honestly fascinating. But yeah, but then you are still a massively creative person, and in my eyes, massively musical. So it's fascinating to hear that from your side.
Well, I guess that's the one thing I do think I have almost wired into me, is like I've got good intuitions about music. I think like I know what a good song sounds like, but that's about it. Everything else I've had to kind of pick up and learn along the way, and how to actually build it was something I've picked up and had to kind of learn.
Yeah, but for someone who's so in tune and fascinated with lyrics and melodies, I've always struggled to come up with my own. It's always something that I've always had a real issue with, and I think it might be born out of fear of, again, going back, sounding stupid to other people. There is an element of me, and it's not something I'm proud of, that is kind of, if I don't try, I can't fail, which is awful. But yeah, and kind of stick to what you know and what you're good at.
I think it's the same with anything, though. You just start writing. You just do it.
Yeah, I need to. I'm sick of not. I feel like there's something within me that needs to come out, and is being wasted by not. Or maybe it's just a load of nonsense.
Yeah, well, sometimes it'll frustrate. I would imagine it would frustrate you. At some point, it'll frustrate you so much that you just can't not do it.
Oh, there isn't much that doesn't frustrate me, Darren. Yeah, no, but I think you're right. Sometimes, everyone strays away from what makes them uncomfortable. And I think you're right. That would make me... I just don't know where to begin.
I just think of frustration and fear and all these things. Like, to me, how I perceive them is as a call to action. It's there. It's an imperative. Like, do this thing or don't do that thing. Like, that's what fear is supposed to do. That's what the emotions are telling you. And when I say I find it difficult because I'm not very close to them, that's why, because they're there to tell me something, and I'm missing out on that information. It's like I have to pay really close attention to get to it. Whereas you're just getting this information all the time, and you might say it's too much, it's overwhelming, but they're useful cues. Like, they're more useful than what I have. I think.
I don't know. I feel like it sounds quite similar that we're stifled by two ends of that spectrum. You don't feel close enough to it. I feel too close.
Too close, yeah. Smothered,
yeah. Enveloped. Perhaps we should work together.
Yeah. Well, I'd say, do you know what? Lyrics for me are the thing that I still struggle with more than anything else as well. And partly that's why I was interested in starting doing philosophy, because I wanted to write more. So this is something I was aware of maybe about 4 years ago. So I just started and I started journaling, and I started just writing for fun, just on my computer, just writing what I thought when I thought it about anything that I was curious about. And then it's, fast forward 4 years time, and I'm not bad at writing now. Dare I say I don't know if I'd go as far as saying I'm good, so I daren't say it.
No, tell it.
I don't know if I am. I think that's it. It's like, I feel like I might be good at writing, but I haven't had that feedback from anywhere, so I have no idea. I don't really know. I feel like I'm good enough. I'm okay at the moment, but I just keep doing it.
Yeah, I feel the same about singing. Like, I feel I might be good enough as a singer. When people ask me, it's such a weird question that instantly makes me feel uncomfortable. People go, "What do you do? What do you do?" "Oh, I'm a singer." "Are you any good?" The hell am I meant to say to that? So I've tried to train myself to go, yes. But I don't want to come across as conceited or self-involved. But then it's like, but I am good, and I do it for a living, so I must be all right. But it's a question that I've always hated being asked.
It's you can't imagine that question being asked to a firefighter.
Yeah. No, I'm properly terrible. Like, so many people have burned
Yeah, not very good at
just
it.
to death.
I keep setting
It's
people on
just,
fire.
yeah. Or like, I don't know. Has anyone ever said that to Dave? Oh, my answer, are you any good?
Do you know what? I don't think so. Probably not. I think it is. It does seem like there's something unique to singing about that. I wonder if it's because with singing, it's almost like there's nothing to hide behind. It's so much more intimate and personal than anything else. Anything you do with your voice is because it's you. You know, if I'm playing a guitar, I feel like I'm a degree
Behind that guitar.
backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like going, oh, what's your voice like? It's terrible. Everyone hates the sound of when I speak. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is. It is you. It's like someone going, "Oh, your right arm disgusts me." You can't hide behind that, can you?
And you can't really do much about it either.
No.
I think it's
I mean, my right. I was going to be inappropriate. I'm just going to stop.
Well, I was gonna say that thinking about singing is it really does feel more exposed than any other thing that you could do. I would imagine dancing must be something similar, but drama must be a little different, and playing an instrument must be different because drama you're playing somebody else. You know, you aren't you. But when you're singing, you're you. It's you doing it. You're on the line, and so it feels more threatening to me almost. In doing it, it feels like there's more reason to be scared.
No, I mean, yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that. Because yeah, and that's still when it kind of annoys me when people go, "Oh, do you not play guitar?" And it's like, I do enough. Like, and it's always people that haven't listened to me. But it feels like I have to explain it. But yeah, it is very soul bearing, and like you say, it's your noise, it's your squawk, and there's a sea full of faces.
So do you find it like is it a cathartic experience because of that then as well? Because it is almost like throwing caution to the wind and just doing it regardless, or is it something else?
Yeah, I feel when I can see that people are enjoying it or that they like the sound of my voice, it's definitely a validation that I don't get anywhere else, and I feel probably the most kind of complete validation when that happens. When I know that it's sounding good, or you can see the expressions on people, or they're actively engaged. Like for any musician, it's soul destroying when people aren't engaged. We've all been there. We've all sang and played on stages where people are talking to the mates or just not even looking, and it's like, I mean, so many gigs where people just haven't clapped, and it's not because you're terrible. It's just because they're so engrossed in what they're doing,
Which is almost worse.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, I've spoken to so many other musicians, but it's just like, really, you can't just lift your hands and collide them together. Just maybe out of pity, that'll do me. But yeah, when you're just like, oh God, maybe I'm just hungry for validation. I don't know.
That is something to muse over after this podcast, I suppose. But things to think about. Yeah. I listen. I have one final question that I wrote down a little earlier on, and it seems disconnected from the rest of it, so I just kind of stuck it at the end. But it was a question to do with the music that you hear and the way that you hear it. So lyrics specifically. I was wondering if there are good songs that have bad lyrics. So songs that you still think are good despite their bad lyrics, or the other way around. So songs that have good lyrics that you like, but the song you don't.
Yes, I mean, yeah. There's a lot of trash that still, gets me in that club. No, do you know what I mean? Like, is it all the single ladies? Has about 5 lyrics and about 6 different writers, but it's a jam. But I suppose that's more the instrumentation and the arrangement. I've got to at least have some kind of affinity with the instrumentation, the arrangement, the way it makes me react. There aren't, yeah. there's going to be so many songs I'm going to think of after this and be like, God, why did I say that? But
that's a good example, I think though.
Help me. Oh, I thought you were about to offer some more.
No, but that is a good example.
For me, for it to, if the lyrics are trash, I'm out. It'll actively annoy me. So like, God, I don't know. I've just contradicted to what I said then as well. No, that is a. That
I'll
is
edit that out.
Yeah, edit that last bit out. Yeah, there is loads of songs, and I can't think of an abundance of them right now.
So for me, it's easy because I just don't pay attention to the lyrics in the first place. So I can hear anything, and the lyrics can be absolutely dreadful, and I just don't notice. I think the only thing I might notice is if the lyrics are dreadful enough, then I might notice them, and if they're good enough, then I might notice them. And something might stick in. Something might, a phrase might cut through the noise and become clear to me. But that's about the extent of it. And it's really the same when I'm writing the songs as well. It's, a phrase will just kind of cut through, and that's all I'll have for years sometimes.
Yeah. For me to latch onto a song and think there needs to be some kind of truth or honesty in it, even if it is crap, and not particularly well written. If there's honesty in it, then I'll let you roll.
Yeah, I see. One of my favourite songs is "Kiss from a Rose" by Seal.
Hang on. There's nothing wrong with that song.
No, but the lyrics just they don't make any. They don't. No, there's not. It's my favourite song. The lyrics make no sense at all, though. I have no idea what is going on there, but I don't care.
Well, I remember. I was told it was about heroin growing up, but no, you're right. It's gibberish, isn't it? But it is so difficult to sing. There's so many times I wanted to do it, and it's everywhere.
Oh, you could do that.
I tried. This is another one that I really want to do, and I sing it. And to be honest, like Sarah's going, "Oh, that sounds great," but I'm like, I'm not happy with that. I'm not.
I did a cover of it on my personal Instagram. I mean, this is probably years ago now, so I feel like I was blessed with liking a song that happens to just fit nicely in my range.
Well, yeah, no, I bet you could do it.
So it kind of works all right for me. But I mean, like you, there's so many songs that I'm like, oh, I might have a give a go at that, and it just collapses, doesn't work.
Yeah, and I might do it one day. But yeah, you're right. There is no semblance of meaning to that song, is there?
No, but oh well. Okay, well, on that note of absurdity, where can people watch you perform or find what you're doing, find your schedule or anything like that?
If you're still listening to my horrible voice right now, first off, well done. Thanks for sticking around. Oh, yeah, thanks, Darren. Well, with there being such a noise of virus being ever present in our lives at the moment, it's quite difficult to say where I'll be. However, when we do get out of the next lockdown, me and my good friend Henry, who I mentioned, have started doing an open mic night down at Brick and Liquor in Wakefield. It is on Westgate. And we take your requests. This is another thing. This is very new to me as well. It's something that I would not do before, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So it's chuck us your requests. If we know it to some degree, that's a caveat as well. When people shout me a song, I'm like, I've never heard it. But if we know it, we'll give it a go. And you are more than welcome to come up and sing with us. We have sanitized mics, and it is all very COVID secure. Nobody will use the same mic. But other than that, I will be around the local bars and venues in and around Wakefield usually.
Nice one. I'll stick any links as well to social media and whatnot on or your website, whatever it might be.
I need a website.
Show notes. Absolutely do. Yeah, fully do.
Do you build websites?
Not really. I mean, I built my ones, but I wouldn't say that I'm very good at them.
That's you all over though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you build websites? Well, I built my own. Right, cool.
No, but I mean, I used Wix, so most of the heavy lifting is done for you. It's drag and drop sort of thing, nice and easy.
Okay, I'll venture into that.
Okay, well, anyway, this was awesome. It was lovely to speak to you and kind of getting some insight into how your mind works. So, thank you so much.
Likewise, I hope it was beneficiary.
I'm sure
to someone.
the listeners will be the judge of that, but for me, it certainly was. So thanks again.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.